All right, so I want to go over audio real quick, and I want to share with you guys some of the stuff I do for like prototyping that I use for sound effects. So there's two things in SFML you can use for playing audio. One is considered music, and one is considered sound. The difference between the two is that music, it will play and stream that file off disk. So if you have a 3-hour music song, it only loads in the portion that is playing at a time, so it doesn't have to load the whole thing in. While sounds, it actually loads the entire file and allows you to play it at any time, but it will keep the entire file in memory. As far as music is concerned, unfortunately, SFML doesn't support MP3. So if you want to play a music file, it has to be an OGG file, an Orbis file, or a WAV file. It'll support that too. So if you're trying to play music, keep that in mind. It has to be OGG. There's like converters you can use to like convert from MP3 to OGG. OGG is like a pretty common format too. It just is open source. So sound effects can be in WAV or OGG as well. So I want to go over both on how to do them. So we can start with sound. So as far as sound is concerned, it's a lot like fonts and a lot like textures. There's two representations of sound. One represents the file on disk, and one represents the sound that you're playing currently. So I want to go over both and explain how to actually make sounds. So I want to just make a jump sound so that whenever I press spacebar, I'll play a jump sound. So there's a website that I use that I've linked in this second lab here on Zool, which is bfxr.net. And this bfxr.net allows you to procedurally generate sound. It allows you to basically generate sound dynamically. Oh, good. bfxr lets you generate sound dynamically. This used to work on Chrome, but we're just going to download the standalone client. And what's cool about it is that you can like generate sounds for like explosions or like picking up coins and stuff. Let's download this guy here. There's also one called SFXR, and SFXR is pretty cool too because it's like 50 kilobytes and it does the same thing. The goal being that you can actually have it export WAV files for you. So on this guy here, I don't know if you guys can all see that. So I'm going to play some explosion sounds. And every time I click this, it generates a sound. These are power-ups. These are jumps. These are pickups. And once you generate a sound, like an explosion, you can change parameters to it. And so once you have a sound that you like, you can just export it. So you just click Export Wave, and then you can make this thing a jump sound, that wave. I can go to where I have it, and I can take this wave file now. Cool. And I can go to my directory. And I can put it into my content folder. So in the engine folder, I've actually already given you guys a jump sound, so you can use that one too. To play sounds in SFML, you have to load the sound first, and then you have to assign that loaded sound into a sound object. In order to load a sound, you're going to create what's called a sound buffer. And this works exactly the same way as all the other load objects. So jump buffer, you can load this from file, and you're going to pass in the path to the file. I'm just going to use my one that I had before, jump.wave. And then you have what's called a sound. And the sound can let you set the buffer for the file that you just loaded. Now that you have this jump sound, you just have to hook it up to some event that you do in-game. So I can set it up so that if I get an event that I've pressed a key, I can have my jump sound and call play on it. So I can call play on it, which will mean that my jump sound now allows me to be triggered based on pressing any key. It doesn't really matter what key it is just is for any key. And this play will play based on this file that I've loaded. So some of you guys may hit an error when you load, so I wanted you guys to pay attention for this part because you might hit this at home too. So a lot of cases you actually run into an error that looks like this. And this says the program can't start because OpenAL32 DLL is missing from your computer. Try reinstalling the program, which is completely unhelpful because there's no installer. What you actually have to do is you have to go into your folder for your project, go up to the SFML directory. Inside of this directory is a bin folder, and this is where your DLL is that you need to copy. Take this OpenAL32 DLL, and you need to put it next to your generated executable. Your executable actually lives in your solution project here. You go into x64, and depending on whether you're building a debug or release, you're going to paste your DLL right next to your exe. Okay? One other thing to note is that if you are having compiler problems because, let's say, for instance, you build your project and it's giving you errors because it doesn't know what a sound buffer is, it gives you all these errors, you have to have SFML audio.hpp included at the top, just like how graphics is included. So keep that in mind too. Okay? So that's how you do a single sound. So this is a buffer and a sound. I'm going to give you guys a lab on that too. If you want to do music, music is a little bit different. There's an actual music object that you can create. And this music has a slightly different named function. Instead of load from file, you're going to do what's called an open from file. And an open from file is basically saying like, hey, open the file but don't read anything from it yet. Don't load the entire thing into memory. Because as I mentioned, audio that's considered music gets streamed in a little bit at a time. So I have in this audio folder a testsong.ogg. So we can set up our same if statement here. And then in order to play the music, you just call the music variable and you invoke the play function on it. And this thing here will not loop by default. You'll have to tell it to loop, but now you can hear this is my overtime music that I'm playing from Overwatch. And you can have this thing trigger based on a key press too. So instead of playing this on start, I can have a key to start playing this song. You can have like a little mix board here. You can also set it to loop if you want to. So overtime music has a bunch of functions. You can look this up on the SFML website too for like the things you can do. You can say set loop, and that way you can set it to be looping. But that's how you set up music, making sure that this thing is an OGG. It will not work with MP3s. Okay. So I have a little bit of a practice exercise for this, which is basically adding sound effects and music to Pong. I'm going to actually combine this with I want to go over this and also talk about the final, because I want you guys to have as much time working on the final, so I'm going to give you guys like the next 2 weeks. And this work will help you too. So here is the homework. So spend a time in lab today working on this, and then I'm going to give you guys this final project too. All I really want you to do is add sound effects and music to Pong. Basically like what I just did, except instead of having it be the key pressing event, and you guys can use the solution I put up on Zool as a starting point if you want to, if you don't have a version of Pong that you want to extend. If you go in here, this week 8 homework solution basically has the Pong that I'd finished, and you guys can use that. But just add sound effects for whenever you hit the ball with the paddle, as well as make it different when it hits the wall versus when it hits the paddle. I want you guys to add a music soundtrack to your game, whatever song you'd like. And then I just want you to keep track of the score for player 1 and player 2, and then draw them to the screen, depending on who scored. So this is going to use the text stuff that you guys just did. You're going to use the O-string streams to actually format integers in the text. And You can draw them at the top of this screen. Okay. So I want you guys to do that in class today. And then let me go over the lab, the final project as well, because I want to put that up on Zool. And I'm giving you guys this so you guys can start thinking about it, because what I want you guys to come with next week is an idea for what you want your final to be. Okay? So I put this up on Zool. The general idea is that I want you guys to take this game of Pong that you have been working on, which will have score and music and sound effects, and add a twist to it. This twist is kind of like, it can be anything, but I want to prove the idea, because a lot of times you might think a twist is either easy and turns out to be hard, or you might have an idea for a twist that's a little bit too simple. So a couple ideas. Your win condition should basically remain the same. You should win when you get 5 points. But you can change how the points are scored, or you can change the gameplay to get those points. Some examples of ideas that you can do if you don't want to think of your own. You can add walls in the middle of the playing field, or you can add power-ups to change the game in different ways. Maybe the ball hits a power-up and then you get a multi-ball, or you make the paddle bigger. Some ideas that are not valid are things that are, I think, too simple, which are changing the size of the paddle or the balls. It's not enough for this final project. You're changing the speed of the ball is not enough either, or the amount of score. Those is really, really simple, tweakable things. And really push yourself to think of something that would make this game more interesting, right? So what you're actually going to deliver to me is on week 10 if you're graduating, or week 11 if you're not, is a full project. So this is like everything, the executable, the content, the music. I need everything so I can run it. And then proper controls for 2 players, or AI if you want to make it a single player game. Okay. So think about it next week. I want you guys to come to class thinking about a twist that you want to make for Pong, because next week we're going to spend all class working on this. There's not going to be a lecture. And then week 11, if you're not done by week 11, you're going to spend all class in week 11 working on it too. Otherwise, if we're done at week 11, we can do something fun on that last class. If people are still working on stuff, we're not going to do anything until everyone's done, which is fine. I'll give you guys the time to do it, but I figure we'll do, like, you guys were here for we did what did we do last quarter? Was it Dr. Mario, right? And we'll do another challenge. Was that? Yeah, that's right. Maybe we'll do a different version of it. All right. So that's it for class today. So